The three dark ships moved through space like silent shadows. They were small and fast, built for watching and hiding. Commander Vextar sat in his chair and looked at the blue planet growing bigger on his screen. His four eyes were focused and calm. This was just another job for him and his team. The planet looked pretty from far away. Blue oceans and white clouds covered most of it. Green and brown land showed through the clouds. It looked peaceful and quiet, just like hundreds of other worlds he had seen before. "Sir, we are getting close to the third planet," said Catheta from her seat at the controls. She was his best pilot and navigator. Her fingers moved quickly over the buttons and screens. "I can see radio signals coming from down there. Basic stuff, nothing special." Vextar nodded. This was normal. Most worlds they found had some kind of simple communication. Radio waves were common for planets that had not yet learned to travel between stars. These creatures were probably still fighting with metal weapons and riding in wheeled vehicles. "Good. Start the normal check," he said. "I want to know everything about their armies. How many soldiers do they have? What weapons do they use? How well organized are they? The big fleet will want all the details before they come to take over." The three scout ships spread out in different directions. Each one had the best hiding technology the Empire had ever made. No primitive planet could see them coming. They were invisible to any simple sensors these creatures might have built. Vextar had done this same job many times before. He would find a new world, watch the people living there, count their soldiers and weapons, then report back to the Empire. Most planets were easy to understand. They usually had one or two small armies with maybe 50,000 soldiers at most. Simple weapons that shot metal pieces or made small explosions. Nothing that could stop the Empire's advanced technology and millions of trained warriors. "Sir, I am finding some interesting things," Catheta said. Her voice sounded a little confused. "There are military bases on the big northern continent. Lots of them. More than I expected to see." "How many is lots?" Vextar asked. He left his chair and walked over to look at her screen. "I count about 40 big military places so far. Each one has lots of activity. People moving around, vehicles, energy signatures that look like weapons testing." Vextar made a clicking sound with his mouthparts. 40 military bases was unusual for a world that had not met other species yet. Most planets he had seen before had maybe 5 or 10 bases total, but 40 was not impossible. Some worlds were more organized than others. "Keep looking," he told her. "Check the whole planet. Look for where they make weapons and where most people live." Catheta went back to her work. Her screens showed different parts of the planet as the ships moved around it. Vextar returned to his chair and watched the information come in. The planet was bigger than he first thought. It had 7 large pieces of land separated by water. People lived on most of them. "Sir," called Zalnik from the communication station, "I am listening to their information networks. They have something called the Internet. Lots of data moving back and forth between their cities." "What kind of data?" Vextar asked. "All kinds. News, entertainment, business information. But I also see military communications, coded messages between different army groups, training, schedules, equipment orders." This was getting more interesting. Most primitive worlds did not have such organized communication between their military forces. Usually their armies were separate groups that barely talked to each other. Can you understand what they are saying? Their language is not too hard to figure out. They actually use many different languages, but some are more common than others. I am working on translation programs now. Vextar watched the blue planet turn slowly below them. The creatures down there had no idea they were being watched. They went about their daily lives, completely unaware that their world was being studied and measured for conquest. Hours passed as the 3 ships continued their silent observation. Catheta kept finding more military installations. The number kept growing. 50 bases, then 60, then 70. "Sir, I need to report something strange," Catheta said. Her voice was more confused now. "I have been scanning this planet for 6 hours. I keep finding more and more military bases. The number is much higher than normal." "How much higher?" "I am now at over 100 confirmed military installations. and I have only checked about half the planet so far. Vextar felt a small chill run through his body. 100 military bases was far more than any primitive world should have. Even the most warlike planets he had seen before never had more than 30 or 40 bases total. Are you sure these are all military? Maybe some are just factories or cities? No, sir, these are definitely military. I can see weapons storage areas, training grounds, vehicle depots, and command centers. Some of them are huge, much bigger than anything we have seen on other worlds. Zalnik looked up from his station. Sir, I am getting more information from their networks. These creatures call themselves humans. They have divided their world into separate areas called countries, or nations. Each nation has its own military force. How many nations? I count about 200 different political groups. Some are small, but many are large with their own armies, navies, and air forces. Vextar stood up quickly. 200 separate military organizations on one planet. That was impossible. Most worlds had one central government with one army. Maybe 2 or 3 if the planet was divided by war. But 200 separate military forces was beyond anything in his experience. Show me what you have found so far, he ordered. Catheta activated the main display screen. A map of the planet appeared, covered with red dots. Each dot was a confirmed military installation. There were so many dots that parts of the map looked almost solid red. This is just what I have confirmed so far, Catheta said. There are many more locations that might be military, but I need more time to check them all. Vextar stared at the screen. The planet looked like it was covered in military bases. How is this possible? Why would one world need so many soldiers and weapons? Zalnik, are these humans fighting a war right now? No, sir. According to their news networks, the world is mostly at peace. There are a few small conflicts in some areas, but nothing that would explain this level of military preparation. They have all these military bases during peacetime? It appears so, sir. The 3 aliens looked at each other in confusion. Nothing in their training had prepared them for this situation. The Empire's military experts had studied thousands of worlds. They had detailed plans for every type of civilization they might encounter. But those plans all assumed that primitive worlds would have small, simple military forces. Sir, Catheta said quietly, I think we need to expand our search. If this many military installations exist on just the parts of the planet I have scanned, so far there might be thousands more we have not found yet. Thousands? Vextar repeated. It is possible, sir. This planet is much more militarized than anything in our database. Vextar sat back down in his chair. His mind was racing as he tried to understand what they were discovering. These humans were supposed to be a primitive species ripe for conquest, easy targets with simple weapons and small armies. But what they were finding suggested something completely different. Continue the scan, he ordered. I want every military installation on this planet cataloged. Every weapon, every soldier, every base. We need to understand what we are dealing with here. The 3 scout ships continued, their silent watch as the planet rotated below them. With each passing hour, the scope of human military organization became clearer and more disturbing. This was not going to be the simple reconnaissance mission they had expected. Something was very different about these humans. Something that might change everything the Empire thought it knew about primitive worlds and easy conquests. 3 days had passed since the alien scouts first arrived at Earth. Commander Vextar had not slept much during those days. Every few hours, his team reported new discoveries that made less and less sense. The blue planet below them was revealing secrets that challenged everything they knew about primitive worlds. Catheta worked at her station without stopping. Her screen showed different parts of Earth as she continued her systematic scan. The red dots marking military installations kept growing in number. What had started as a surprising 40 bases was now approaching something impossible. Commander, Catheta said, her voice tired but amazed. I need to give you an update on our findings. Vextar walked over to her station. He could see the strain in her posture. She had been working for almost 72 straight hours with only short breaks. What do you have for me? Sir, we have now identified over 800 major military installations across this planet. The words hit Vextar like a physical blow. He gripped the edge of her console to steady himself. 800? That cannot be correct. I have checked and double-checked the readings, sir. 800 confirmed military bases of significant size. This does not include smaller outposts, training centers, or storage facilities, just the major installations. Vextar stared at the global map on her screen. The entire planet was covered with red markers. Some areas were so dense with military sites that the individual dots merged together. Are you certain these are all military facilities? Perhaps you are detecting civilian buildings or factories? Catheta shook her head. No, sir. I can clearly identify the signatures of weapons storage, vehicle maintenance areas, training grounds, command centers, and barracks. These are definitely military installations. Zalnik looked up from his communication station. Sir, I have been analyzing their information networks for 3 days now. I can confirm that Catheta's readings are accurate. The humans maintain extensive military forces across their entire world. How extensive? Vextar asked, though he was not sure. He wanted to hear the answer. Based on their own records, they have multiple separate military organizations. The largest single military force belongs to a nation called the United States. This one country maintains over 1 million active soldiers. 1 million soldiers? Vextar repeated weakly. In a single nation? Yes, sir. And that is just active duty personnel. They also have reserve forces and National Guard units that add several million more part-time soldiers. The United States alone has more military personnel than our entire home planet has total population. Vextar felt his legs become unsteady. He sat down heavily in the nearest chair. The numbers were so large they seemed meaningless. How could one nation on one world have an army of over 1 million soldiers? Zalnik, how many of these nations are there with large military forces? Sir, I have identified at least 20 major military powers. Some have armies almost as large as the United States. Others are smaller but still number in the hundreds of thousands of active soldiers. Catheta activated a new display showing the distribution of military forces around the planet. Different colors represented different nations and their military strength. The display looked like a complex puzzle with pieces of different sizes covering every continent. The humans have divided their world into nearly 200 separate political entities, Catheta explained. Almost all of them maintain some form of military force. Even the smallest nations have professional armies. During peacetime? Vextar asked. According to their news networks, yes, sir. This appears to be their normal state of military readiness. Vextar studied the display, trying to process what he was seeing. On his homeworld, the entire planetary military consisted of about 50,000 personnel. That was considered quite large for a single planet. But these humans maintained armies that were 20 times larger. And they did it during a time of peace. Sir, Zalnik continued, there is something else you need to know. I have been studying their military history through their information networks. These humans have been fighting wars continuously for thousands of years. Continuously? Without interruption, sir. Even now, during what they call peacetime, there are several smaller conflicts happening in different parts of their world. But, more importantly, they have fought massive wars involving most of their planet. Define massive. Zalnik pulled up historical records on his screen. In the past century, they fought 2 global wars. The second one involved over 60 nations and required the complete mobilization of their societies for military production. Complete mobilization? Sir, during their Second World War, individual nations were producing military equipment at rates that exceed our current imperial manufacturing capabilities. The United States alone built over 300,000 military aircraft during that conflict. 300,000. The numbers were so staggering that Vextar had trouble believing them. How is that possible? They converted their entire industrial base to military production. Factories that normally made civilian goods were retooled to manufacture weapons, vehicles, and equipment for war. Millions of civilians worked in weapons factories. Catheta looked up from her scanning. Sir, I am detecting evidence of this industrial capacity even now. The humans maintain extensive manufacturing facilities that could be quickly converted to military production if needed. Show me. The display changed to show industrial centers around the world. Large concentrations of factories, power plants, and manufacturing facilities were marked across every continent. The scale was enormous. These facilities currently produce civilian goods, Catheta explained, but their design and capacity suggest they could be rapidly converted to military production. The humans appear to maintain the ability to quickly expand their military forces if threatened. Vextar stood up and began pacing around the command center. Everything they were discovering contradicted the basic assumptions about primitive worlds. These humans were not simple farmers and hunters with crude weapons. They were a species that had organized their entire civilization around the concept of warfare. Zalnik, what kinds of weapons do they possess? Their current military technology is far more advanced than we initially estimated, sir. They have developed weapons that can destroy entire cities with a single explosion. Nuclear weapons? Yes, sir. And not just a few experimental devices. I have identified active stockpiles of over 13,000 nuclear warheads. Vextar stopped pacing. 13,000 nuclear weapons? That is their current inventory, sir. Historical records suggest they once maintained over 70,000 such weapons before reducing their stockpiles through various agreements. 70,000 nuclear warheads? Vextar's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, sir. The explosive power represented by their current nuclear arsenal exceeds the total destructive capability of our entire Imperial fleet. The silence in the scout ship stretched for several minutes. Vextar tried to comprehend what he was hearing. A single primitive world that maintained military forces larger than anything in Imperial experience, industrial capacity that could expand those forces rapidly, and enough nuclear weapons to destroy hundreds of worlds. Sir, Catheta said quietly, there is more. I have been analyzing their naval forces while you were discussing their land armies. Naval forces? Yes, sir. Military ships that operate on their oceans. I have identified over 4,000 active military vessels of various sizes. Some of these ships are enormous, capable of carrying hundreds of aircraft and thousands of personnel. 4,000 military ships? The larger vessels appear to be mobile military bases. They can project force anywhere on their world's oceans. Some nations maintain fleets with over 300 ships. Vextar looked out at the blue planet rotating, slowly below them. Every piece of information his team gathered made the situation more incomprehensible. These humans lived on a world that was essentially one giant military installation. How is this possible? He asked, more to himself than to his crew. How can one world support such massive military forces? Sir, Zalnik said, I think I may have found part of the answer. The humans have a concept they call military-industrial complex. Their military forces and weapons manufacturing are closely integrated with their government and economy. What does that mean? It means that military preparation is built into their entire society. They do not just have armies that exist separately from their civilian population. Their entire civilization is organized to support and maintain their military forces. Catheta nodded in agreement. The manufacturing facilities I detected are not just capable of being converted to military production. Many of them are already producing military equipment during peacetime. They maintain constant production of weapons and vehicles even when not at war. They are always preparing for war, Vextar realized. Exactly, sir. From what I can determine, the humans view military preparation as a permanent necessity. They do not reduce their forces when conflicts end. They maintain them at high levels of readiness at all times. Vextar returned to his command chair and stared at the display showing Earth's military infrastructure. The planet glowed with red, indicators representing bases, weapons, and forces beyond anything in his experience. 1 week had passed since the alien scouts first began watching Earth. Commander Vextar had stopped counting the hours. His team worked in shifts now, taking turns to rest while the others continued gathering intelligence. What they were discovering was so far beyond normal that Vextar had requested extended observation time from Imperial Command. The holographic display in the center of their ship now showed a complete picture of human military organization. Taduriro. Dots covered every continent like a disease. The numbers had grown so large that they seemed abstract, meaningless, but Vextar knew they were very real. Report, he ordered as Catheta returned to her station after a brief rest period. Sir, we have now confirmed over 12,000 military installations of significant size across the planet. she said. Her voice carried a tone of disbelief even after a week of constant surprises. This does not include smaller outposts, recruitment centers, training facilities, or storage depots, just major installations. 12,000, Vextar repeated. The number had lost all meaning to him. His mind could not properly grasp the scale. Furthermore, Catheta continued, we have identified approximately 50 million active military personnel across all human nations. Vextar gripped the arms of his chair. 50 million soldiers. The entire population of his home system was barely 30 million beings. These humans had more soldiers than his people had total citizens. Zalnik looked up from his station where he had been analyzing human communication networks. Sir, I have compiled data on their military organization. Would you like me to present my findings? Yes. Tell me everything. Zalnik activated his display, showing organizational charts and force structures. The humans maintain multiple types of military forces, land armies, naval fleets, air forces, and space commands. Each nation organizes these forces differently, but all follow similar patterns. Space commands? Vextar asked sharply. Yes, sir. Several nations maintain military organizations specifically focused on operations beyond their atmosphere. They have built military satellites, space surveillance systems, and what appears to be the infrastructure for rapid deployment of forces into orbital space. This was new information. Vextar had been so focused on the ground forces that he had not fully considered human space capabilities. Show me their orbital assets. The display changed to show the space around Earth. Hundreds of objects orbited the planet. Satellites, space stations, and various platforms created a shell of human technology around their world. Many of these are civilian communication and navigation satellites, Zalnik explained. But we have identified over 200 military satellites. These include surveillance platforms, communication relays, and what appear to be weapons systems. Orbital weapons? The technology is primitive compared to our capabilities, but yes, they have developed systems that can attack targets on their planet's surface from orbit. They also appear to be researching more advanced orbital weapons. Catheta added new information to the display. Sir, I have also detected human military installations on their planetary satellite. They have militarized their moon. Not extensively, but yes. They maintain research facilities and equipment caches on the lunar surface. According to their communications, they consider it strategically important for future military operations. Vextar stared at the display showing human military presence extending throughout their local space. These beings had not only weaponized their entire planet, but were extending their military reach into the void around them. What about their weapons technology? He asked. Zalnik pulled up detailed analysis of human weapon systems. Sir, their current technology is more sophisticated than we initially assessed. Beyond the 13,000 nuclear weapons, they possess advanced conventional explosives, guided missile systems, electronic warfare capabilities, and directed energy weapons in early development. Directed energy weapons? Laser systems primarily, still experimental, but they are actively developing military applications. Their research suggests they will have operational laser weapons within a few years. Their rate of technological advancement? Extremely rapid, sir. In the past century, they progressed from basic chemical explosives to thermonuclear weapons, from simple flying machines to orbital spacecraft, from mechanical computers to global information networks. Their military technology advances at a pace we have never observed in any civilization. Vextar stood and walked to the main display. The image of Earth rotated slowly, covered in red indicators representing military power beyond anything in Imperial experience. Zalnik, show me their manufacturing capabilities. The display changed to show industrial centers around the world. Massive complexes of factories, power plants, and production facilities covered entire regions. Sir, their current industrial capacity is staggering. During peacetime, they produce military equipment at rates that exceed many of our Imperial facilities. But more importantly, they maintain the ability to rapidly expand this production. How rapidly? Historical analysis suggests they can increase military production by factors of 10 to 20 within months if needed. During their global wars, single nations produced military equipment at rates that would strain our entire empire's manufacturing base. Catheta added more data to the display. Sir, I have been analyzing their logistics networks. The humans have built transportation systems specifically designed to support large-scale military operations. Roads, railways, airports, and seaports capable of moving enormous amounts of personnel and equipment quickly across their planet. Show me. The display revealed transportation networks crisscrossing every continent. Roads connected every major city and military installation. Rail lines carried heavy cargo across continents. Airports capable of handling large military aircraft existed in every region. Seaports designed for massive military ships dotted every coastline. These transportation systems exist primarily for civilian use during peacetime, Catheta explained, but they are designed to support full military mobilization. The humans can move entire armies across their planet in days. Zalnik brought up historical records. Sir, during their Second World War they demonstrated this capability. Millions of soldiers and millions of tons of equipment were transported across oceans and continents in a matter of months. Their current transportation capacity is far superior to what they had during that conflict. Vextar studied the comprehensive picture of human military capability. Ground forces numbering 50 million, naval fleets with thousands of ships, air forces with tens of thousands of aircraft, orbital military assets, nuclear weapons by the thousands, industrial capacity to expand all of these forces rapidly, transportation networks to move armies quickly anywhere on their planet. Sir, Catheta said quietly, there is something else. I have been analyzing their defensive preparations. Defensive preparations? Yes, sir. The humans have built extensive defensive systems around their military installations and population centers. Anti-aircraft weapons, missile defense systems, underground bunkers, and hardened command centers. How extensive? Every major city and military base is protected by multiple layers of defensive systems. Their largest nations maintain missile defense networks capable of intercepting hundreds of incoming weapons simultaneously. Zalnik added more disturbing information. Sir, they also maintain what they call continuity of government protocols, plans to ensure their political and military leadership can continue functioning even if their primary command centers are destroyed. They have planned for losing a war? They have planned for surviving a war, sir. Underground facilities, mobile, command posts, backup communication systems, and dispersed leadership structures. Even if we destroyed their primary military installations, they could continue organized resistance. The implications were staggering. These humans had not only built military forces capable of challenging the Empire, but they had planned for surviving and continuing to fight even if those forces were initially defeated. Sir, Catheta continued, their defensive preparations extend beyond military systems. They have built extensive civilian defense networks, emergency shelters, food, storage, medical facilities, and communication systems designed to support their population during prolonged conflict. They have prepared their entire population for war? In many ways, yes, sir. Their educational systems include basic military training. Their civilian infrastructure is designed to support military operations. Their population is psychologically prepared for the possibility of global conflict. Vextar returned to his chair, overwhelmed by the scope of human military preparation. These beings had turned warfare into a science. They had organized their entire civilization around the assumption that conflict was inevitable, and that survival required constant readiness. Sir, Zalnik said, I have found something in their information networks that you need to see. What is it? Military planning documents discussing extraterrestrial contact scenarios. They have planned for meeting alien species. Not just meetings, sir. They have developed military contingency plans for hostile alien contact, strategies for defending against technologically superior opponents, research into potential alien weaknesses, coordination protocols between their nations in the event of external threats. The second week of surveillance had begun, and Commander Vexitar no longer left his command station. He survived on energy injections and stimulants as his team worked around the clock to understand what they had discovered. The scope of human, military capability had grown beyond anything in their experience or training. Sleep came in short periods filled with nightmares about endless armies and weapons that could destroy entire star systems. When awake, Vextar faced the reality that was somehow worse than his dreams. The blue planet below contained military forces that challenged everything the Empire believed about primitive worlds. "Sir," Zalnik called from his station, "I have completed my analysis of human military history. You need to hear this report." Vextar turned toward his communications officer. Over the past week, Zalnik had been studying thousands of years of human warfare through their information networks. The young officer looked tired and shaken by what he had learned. "Tell me what you found." "Sir, these humans have been continuously engaged in warfare for their entire recorded history, not occasional conflicts or border disputes. Continuous, organized, large-scale warfare for over 5,000 years. Continuously? Without interruption, sir. At no point in their documented history has their entire world been at peace. Even now, during what they consider a peaceful time, there are active military conflicts in multiple regions." Zalnik activated his display, showing a timeline of human conflicts. The screen filled with an unbroken chain of wars, battles, and military campaigns stretching back thousands of years. Furthermore, sir, their conflicts have grown progressively larger and more devastating. In the past century alone, they fought 2 global wars that involved most of their planet's population. Tell me about these global wars. The first involved over 30 nations and resulted in approximately 20 million military and civilian casualties. But sir, that was considered a small conflict compared to what followed. The display changed to show the scope of the Second World War. Maps covered with battle locations, troop movements, and strategic operations across every continent and ocean. Their Second World War involved over 60 nations and required total mobilization of entire societies. At the peak of this conflict, they had over 100 million personnel directly engaged in military operations. 100 million soldiers? Vextar repeated, though the number had stopped seeming real to him. That was direct military personnel, sir. The total number of people involved in the war effort, including weapons manufacturing, logistics, and support, exceeded 300 million individuals. Catheta looked up from her scanning station. "Sir, I have been analyzing their current military doctrine based on these historical patterns. What we are observing now represents their minimal, peacetime defensive posture. Minimal? According to their own strategic planning documents, they maintain the infrastructure and capability to expand their current military forces by a factor of 10 within 12 months, if threatened by external attack." Vextar calculated quickly, in his head. That would mean 500 million soldiers. Yes, sir. 500 million military personnel if they achieved full mobilization. The numbers were so large they became meaningless. The entire Zephyrian Empire, built over centuries of expansion across dozens of worlds, maintained approximately 8 million military personnel. These humans could theoretically field an army more than 60 times larger than the Empire's entire armed forces. How is such mobilization possible? Vextar asked. Zalnik pulled up industrial production data. Sir, during their Second World War, individual human nations achieved production rates that exceed our current imperial manufacturing capabilities. The United States alone produced over 300,000 military aircraft, 100,000 tanks, and 8,000 naval vessels during a 4-year period. That is impossible. I have verified the numbers multiple times, sir. They converted their entire industrial base to military production. Factories that made civilian automobiles were retooled to produce tanks. Shipyards that built cargo vessels started making warships. Companies that manufactured household goods began producing ammunition and weapons. Catheta added more disturbing information. Sir, their current industrial capacity is far superior to what they had during that historical conflict. Modern manufacturing technology allows them to produce military equipment much faster than before. Show me their current production capability. The display revealed massive industrial complexes around the world, automotive factories capable of producing thousands of vehicles per month, shipyards that could build multiple naval vessels simultaneously, aircraft manufacturing facilities with production lines designed for rapid expansion. These facilities currently produce civilian goods, Catheta explained, but they are designed for quick conversion to military production. The humans learned from their historical experience and built flexibility into their industrial base. Vextar studied the global map showing industrial centers. Every major nation maintained significant manufacturing capability. Even smaller countries had factories and production facilities that could contribute to a war effort. Sir, Zalnik continued, there is something else about human military doctrine that you need to understand. They do not fight wars the same way we do. What do you mean? Imperial military doctrine focuses on overwhelming technological superiority and quick, decisive victories. We defeat opponents through better weapons and tactics than establish control over conquered territories. That is the logical approach to warfare. Yes, sir, but humans have developed a different philosophy. They have experience fighting opponents, with superior technology and winning through adaptation, innovation, and sheer persistence. Zalnik brought up historical examples. During their Second World War, they faced enemies with initially superior weapons and training. But they overcame these disadvantages through rapid technological development, massive production capacity, and willingness to absorb enormous casualties while learning. They learned during combat? Constantly, sir. Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptation and improvement under pressure. They study enemy tactics, develop countermeasures, and implement changes while actively fighting. Their technology advances fastest during times of conflict. This was troubling information. Imperial strategy assumed that technological superiority would provide decisive advantage, but if humans could rapidly develop countermeasures during combat, that advantage might be temporary. Sir, Catheta added, I have been studying their research and development capabilities. The humans maintain extensive military research programs during peacetime. They are constantly developing new weapons and defensive systems. What kind of research? Advanced materials, artificial intelligence, energy weapons, orbital platforms, biological defenses, and technologies? I do not fully understand, but most concerning is their approach to research. Explain. They do not rely on single research centers or small groups of scientists. Human military research involves hundreds of universities, thousands of private companies, and millions of researchers working on different aspects of military technology simultaneously. The scope was staggering. The Empire's military research was conducted by a few thousand specialists at central facilities. These humans had organized their entire scientific community around continuous military innovation. Furthermore, Catheta continued, they share research between their military organizations. Even though they maintain separate armies, they coordinate on technology development. This means innovations spread rapidly across their entire species. Zalnik brought up more historical data. Sir, human technological advancement accelerates during conflicts. In 4 years of global war, they progressed from basic radar systems to sophisticated electronic warfare, from simple rockets to intercontinental ballistic missiles, from conventional explosives to nuclear weapons. They developed nuclear weapons during active warfare? Yes, sir. While fighting a global conflict, on multiple fronts they simultaneously conducted advanced nuclear research and successfully tested atomic weapons. Then they immediately began developing even more powerful hydrogen bombs. Vexitar tried to imagine the mental processes that would allow a species to conduct advanced scientific research while fighting for survival. The focus and determination required was beyond his understanding. Sir, Zalnik said quietly, I need to tell you about human psychological warfare capabilities. Psychological warfare? They have developed sophisticated methods for disrupting enemy morale, spreading misinformation, and turning opponents against each other. But more importantly, they appear to be psychologically adapted for prolonged conflict. What does that mean? Human societies do not collapse under the stress of long wars the way most species do. They become more organized, more focused, and more innovative when threatened. War makes them stronger rather than weaker. This contradicted everything in imperial military psychology. Most species became less effective as conflicts continued. Morale declined, social structures weakened, and military performance degraded over time. But humans seemed to thrive under pressure. Show me evidence of this. The display showed human societies during their major conflicts. Instead of collapsing, their economies had grown stronger. Commander Vextar stood alone in the communication chamber of his scout vessel. The quantum transmitter hummed softly as it prepared to send his report across the vast distances of space to Imperial Command. His hands trembled slightly as he activated the recording system. In all his years of service, he had never delivered news that would shake the foundations of Imperial strategy. The holographic projector flickered to life, and the image of Fleet Admiral Morthek appeared before him. Her 4 eyes were sharp and focused, expecting a routine reconnaissance report from what should have been a simple primitive world. "Commander Vextar," the Admiral began, "your preliminary communications have been quite unusual. I trust you have gathered sufficient data to explain these concerning reports about excessive military installations." Vextar straightened his posture and looked directly at the Admiral's image. "Admiral, I must begin this report with a formal recommendation. All planned operations in the Sol system should be immediately cancelled and indefinitely postponed." Admiral Morthek's expression shifted, from expectation to surprise. "Commander, that is an extraordinary recommendation. No reconnaissance mission in Imperial history has ever resulted in the cancellation of planned conquest operations. Admiral, the third planet of this system is not suitable for standard Imperial conquest protocols. It represents the most heavily militarized world we have ever encountered, and possibly the greatest military threat the Empire has faced in our recorded history." The Admiral leaned forward in her chair. "Commander, explain your reasoning. What could a primitive pre-contact world possibly possess that would constitute a threat to the Empire?" Vextar activated his data displays, showing the comprehensive intelligence his team had gathered over 2 weeks of intensive surveillance. "Admiral, the inhabitants of this world maintain 50 million active military personnel during what they consider peacetime." 50 million soldiers? Admiral Morthek repeated slowly. "Yes, Admiral. And that represents only their minimal defensive posture. According to their own strategic planning documents, they possess the capability to mobilize over 500 million military personnel within 12 months, if faced with external threat." The Admiral was silent for several long moments, studying the data streams flowing across her screen. "Commander, these numbers seem impossible for a single world." "Admiral, I have spent 2 weeks verifying every figure. The humans have organized their entire planetary civilization around continuous military preparation. They maintain over 12,000 major military installations, possess more than 13,000 nuclear weapons, and operate over 4,000 active naval vessels." Vextar expanded the display to show Earth's global military infrastructure. The planet appeared covered in red indicators representing military sites, weapons stockpiles, and defensive installations. "Furthermore, Admiral, their industrial capacity exceeds our Imperial manufacturing capabilities. During their historical global conflicts, individual human nations produced military equipment at rates that surpass our current empire-wide production levels." "Commander, are you suggesting that a pre-contact civilization could match Imperial industrial output?" "Not match, Admiral. Exceed. Their current peacetime industrial capacity is designed for rapid conversion to military production. Historical analysis shows they can increase weapons manufacturing by factors of 10 to 20 within months when threatened." Admiral Morthek studied the industrial data, her expression growing increasingly grave. "Commander, what is their technological level?" "More advanced than initial assessments indicated, Admiral. They possess thermonuclear weapons with yields exceeding our standard arsenal. They have developed orbital weapons platforms, advanced missile defense systems, and are actively researching directed energy weapons and artificial intelligence for military applications." Vextar brought up displays showing human space capabilities. "Admiral, they have militarized orbital space around their planet and established military installations on their planetary satellite. Their space program is designed to extend military operations throughout their star system. They have space-based military assets?" Extensive ones, Admiral. Over 200 military satellites currently in orbit with the infrastructure to rapidly expand this number. They are also developing plans for military bases on multiple planets and moons in their system. The Admiral was quiet for a long time, processing the impossible scope of human military organization. Finally, she spoke again. Commander, what is your assessment of their combat effectiveness? Admiral, this is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of my findings. Human military doctrine is fundamentally different from Imperial strategy. While we rely on technological superiority for quick, decisive victories, humans have developed warfare as a science of adaptation and persistence. Vexter displayed historical combat data. They have extensive experience fighting technologically superior opponents and defeating them through rapid innovation, massive resource mobilization, and willingness to sustain enormous casualties while learning enemy weaknesses. They adapt during combat. Continuously, Admiral, human technological advancement accelerates under pressure. During their most recent global war, they progressed from basic radar systems to sophisticated electronic warfare in 4 years. They developed nuclear weapons while simultaneously fighting enemies on multiple continents. Commander, are you certain they are not currently engaged in planetary warfare? These preparation levels seem to indicate total militarization. They consider this peacetime readiness, Admiral. Humans have been continuously engaged in organized warfare for over 5,000 years. They view military preparation as a permanent necessity, not a temporary response to specific threats. Vextar activated additional displays showing human military psychology and social organization. Admiral, perhaps most concerning is their psychological adaptation to prolonged conflict. Unlike most species that weaken under extended warfare, humans become more organized, more innovative, and more effective when threatened. Their society strengthens during combat. Historical evidence clearly demonstrates this pattern, Admiral. Human economies grow stronger during major conflicts. Scientific advancement accelerates. Social cooperation increases. Military effectiveness improves throughout long campaigns. Admiral Morthek leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed by the scope of intelligence being presented. Commander, what is your tactical assessment of Imperial forces versus human capabilities? Admiral, standard Imperial invasion doctrine calls for deployment of approximately 2 million personnel supported by orbital bombardment and technological superiority. This force structure has proven effective against all previously encountered civilizations. Vextar paused, knowing his next words would shock Imperial command. Against Earth, such a force would be outnumbered 25-1 by existing human military personnel. If humans achieved full mobilization, our forces would be outnumbered 250-1. 250-1, the Admiral repeated numbly. Admiral, those ratios assume humans cannot develop effective countermeasures to our technology. Given their demonstrated ability to rapidly innovate under pressure, our technological advantages may prove temporary. Vextar brought up the final and most disturbing piece of intelligence. Admiral, there is one more critical factor. Through analysis of human information networks, we have discovered that they maintain detailed contingency plans for extraterrestrial contact. They have planned for alien contact? Military contingency plans, Admiral. Strategies for coordinated global resistance against technologically superior alien forces. Research into potential alien weaknesses. Protocols for sharing intelligence and resources between all human nations in the event of external threat. The display showed human military documents outlining defense strategies against alien invasion. Detailed plans for asymmetric warfare, coordinated resistance, and technological countermeasures. Admiral, when we arrive at Earth, humans will not be surprised or unprepared. They will implement predetermined defensive strategies developed specifically for scenarios like Imperial invasion. Admiral Morthek sat in silence for several minutes, studying the comprehensive intelligence package. The scope of human military capability challenged every assumption about primitive worlds and easy conquests. Commander, she finally said, if your assessment is accurate, what do you recommend regarding future Imperial expansion in this sector? Admiral, I recommend immediate strategic reassessment of all operations within 50 light-years of the Sol system. Humans appear to be expanding their military presence throughout their local star system. Within decades, they may represent a significant threat to imperial expansion in this entire region of the galaxy. You believe they could threaten the Empire? Admiral, based on current trends in human military development and expansion, yes. They possess the industrial capacity, technological innovation, and social organization necessary to challenge imperial dominance. Vextar looked directly at the Admiral's image. Admiral, we came here expecting to catalog another primitive world for easy conquest. Instead, we have discovered a military powerhouse that could potentially reshape the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy.